Last week were shown Xerox copies of purchase orders dated February 28, 1968. One for 500 shares of NBL stock, one for 200 shares, both going to Will Wilson's account, but with a notation on them that the stock was for Ted Bristol. On March the 8th, 1968, 1,000 shares of National Bankers Life stock was transferred from Will Wilson's account to an account in the name of Mrs. Bristol. Sharp also outlined how a former state bank examiner went to work for Sharpstown State Bank and opened a private corporation in his own name. Then money from Sharpstown State Bank was loaned through the private corporation to state bank examiners and to FDIC examiner Bristol to finance their own personal stock purchases. This is Roger McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move in Austin.
Sergeant, what is your reaction now 48 hours after the President's announcement?
Well, I think if he'd followed up with the consumer products and freeze the prices on them along with the labor and the rent situation, well, we'd be on an equal basis and it'd be fine.
The reason that I don't think it'll work is because of the economical aspects of our foreign trade.
Well, I thought it was very good, and I know it was long overdue, and it was something that's well needed. I think Mr. Nixon is a good man. He just had time to work his program out.
Sir, what is your reaction to the President's economic message?
I think it'll work. I'm glad he finally has done something. I think he's needed to do something in a while, and his previous outlooks on it have not worked. It's been proven. I think this will do some good, and I hope it doesn't go any longer than the 90 days.
I believe it was the right thing, because I believe it'll stop some price increases for a little while. You know, hopefully they'll extend it.
The Emergency Employment Act, as passed by Congress, is an effort to give unemployed persons jobs in public service. It's not just another public works training program. At least 1/3 of the positions can go to professionally qualified individuals, such as engineers caught in the aerospace layoffs. The City Council was told last night that Fort Worth is eligible for over $500,000 through the program. Upon the advice of City Manager Roger Lyon, the Council voted to apply for the available funds. Here's the way the money will be used. First, the positions to be filled with the grant money must have been vacant for over 30 days. And second, the persons hired to fill those vacancies must have been unemployed at the time they apply for the jobs. Currently, the city has about 50 positions vacant because of lack of funds. The federal grant, if approved, would neatly fill those positions to the city's benefit and would also provide work for 50 of the city's unemployed. Jay Lewis, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
Mr. Sharp, could you take a few moments to talk with us today?
Oh, a little later, fellas. Just a little bit.
A little later. When is a little later?
You think we got a lot done today?
I don't know. When is later, Mr. Susman?
Why you want to go over there?
Somebody recognized what we have done. Dude. James Rosewall. 4 games to 3. Rosewall leads the second set. Love 2. All.
The address here is 5028 Bryce on the fashionable west side of Fort Worth. This home was built in 1889 and was the first in the area. It was originally built as a model for the soon-to-develop Arlington Heights area. A great deal of Fort Worth history surrounds this 82-year-old structure. It was bought in 1890 by Robert McCart, a prominent attorney. It was so far out of the country, about an hour's buggy ride from downtown, a lake had to be built to provide electricity, and Lake Como was born. Much of the area was owned by McCart, and he gave a portion of it to the government, who later built Camp Bowie. Thus comes the name of one of the city's major thoroughfares, Camp Bowie Boulevard. The house was occupied until May of this year. Now it's being torn beam from joist, a victim of progress and the times. Even though it'll slowly be torn down, parts of it will continue to live someplace else. For example, the massive mahogany staircase inside and the cupola have been purchased by a Cleburne couple. They said they would put the cupola in their yard as a gazebo. Several sections of the balustrades on the front of the house have been sold. The stained glass windows will come out and be restored. For a long time, this house has been very much a part of Fort Worth's history and heritage, but apparently it's not destined for a part of Fort Worth's future. Jerry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
We're hopeful that the trademarks of our team this year will be a very aggressive performance on both sides of the line of scrimmage. We're going to place all our emphasis during two-a-day practice on being aggressive and trying to take the game away from the opponent in every way we can. Of course, the way this develops in terms of plays and defenses is a matter of who you're playing and what type of tactics you have to employ, but our squad has agreed that our first objective is just to be the aggressor again on both sides of the line.
You're going to run, pass, or a combination?
We hope that we'll have a balanced offense. We feel better equipped than we were a year ago to have a good balance. We have big, strong running backs, not a great ability, but good ability, good speed, and they do like to hit, and we think that our offensive line has improved from last year, so we're looking for much better overall balance offensively.
Where is your strength right now?
I'd say I'm overworking the word, but I think the balance has to be our strength, and the other factor that we must develop is to take the game out of the hands of the opponent.
At present, it appears that the service fee for waste collection and disposal could not be put into effect at the present time. I'm working with our budget people now, and we expect to have a recommendation for the City Council next Monday to give them an approach for going ahead with a budget that will meet the variable items that we have to confront at this time. You realize that the City of Dallas the City Council has to set the tax rate in the early part of September, which means that they're going to have to look at the alternatives of what items can be delayed, and we know that the 3% increase will have to be delayed, and possibly the other merit increases would have to be delayed during the period of the freeze order.
Former Houston banker Frank Sharp spent about 3 hours with the Travis County Grand Jury today. This came after he went before Judge Tom Blackwell to make certain that the federal immunity order would apply in state courts. Judge Blackwell said that he could not understand why the SEC, U.S. attorneys, and the federal courts saw fit to grant immunity in this case, but since they did, he had no choice, and the immunity would apply in state courts Therefore, Mr. Sharp could go before the grand jury and testify under the immunity. Mr. Sharp then spent about 3 hours before the Travis County grand jury, and of course that testimony was secret. Meanwhile, Channel 8 News has learned that in depositions given to the Securities Exchange Commission last week in Houston, Frank Sharp outlined to the SEC attorneys how stock purchases were funneled through the brokerage account of former Texas Attorney General Will Wilson to go to former Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation examiner Ted Bristol, formerly of Houston, who is no longer with the FDIC and now living in Dallas.
The actions of the people in this busing matter is not being ignored. I'm sure President Nixon has not ignored it. And Judge Porter has ignored the safety and security of children in that area. And I think this coming September, when school opens in the latter part of August, that some of these parents are going to ignore Judge Porter's attitude. They might watch and wait. I think all of you know that this busing matter is not a matter that in the context of racism. The people of Texas and of this country have accepted the non-discriminatory policy of freedom of choice, even though many people feel that it's still the right of the states to determine the policy of their school system without any interference.
Mr. Sharp, was there any purpose for the loans other than the passage of the banking bills?
I'll have no comment this time, fellows.
There's going to be open hearings tomorrow. Is there any reason to wait till then?
Yeah.
In spite of the fact that Frank Sharp, the alleged mastermind of National Bankers Life Insurance Company stock fraud case, is to go before the House Investigating Committee tomorrow in open hearings, he still refuses to talk to newsmen, as he did today when he went into the Travis County grand jury room. Meanwhile, Channel 8 News has learned more details about Frank Sharp's testimony to SEC investigators and other attorneys last week in Houston. The source revealed to us that Will Wilson, former Texas Attorney General, allowed his account at Goodbody & Company brokerage firm to be used to funnel National Bankers Life stock to an FDIC examiner, Ted Bristol, who was an examiner in Houston but has since left the FDIC. There were copies of purchase orders circulated in the depositions last week, one for 500 shares of NBL stock, one for 200 shares, going to Will Wilson's account, dated February 28, 1968. But there was a notation on those copies which said that the stock was for Bristol. On March the 8th of 1968, 1,000 shares of NBL stock was transferred from Wilson's account to Mrs. Bristol's name. Later, Bristol reportedly bought Siboney Corporation and Olympic Life Insurance Company stock. In his testimony last week, Sharp also revealed how a former Texas bank examiner went to work at Sharpstown State Bank and set up a private, separate corporation. Then Sharp explained through that corporation, Sharpstown State Bank funds were loaned through the private corporation to state bank examiners and to Bristol, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation examiner, which they used to purchase stock. This is Roger McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move in Austin.
Out. Pretty. Love. Out. King and second set to Mr. Alexander. 16-3. Mr. Fowler won the first set. 15-3.